The morning after their quiet promise, life began to move in slow, deliberate rhythms. Wine no longer measured time by days or weeks. She measured it by doctor's appointments, by the way her clothes began to fit differently, by the heartbeat she heard echoing softly through the speakers. During ultrasounds, Jungkook was there for every one of them. At first, he hovered, uncertain, awkward, unsure where to place his hands or how to act. But as weeks turned into months, that hesitation softened. He learned her habits, her cravings, her moods, the little things that made her laugh, and the quiet fears that made her cry when she thought no one was watching. And though their relationship wasn't labeled or defined, something between them had shifted. It started with pickles, then chocolates, then inexplicably both together. Vine sat cross-legged on the couch one evening dipping a chocolate bar into a jar of pickled juice. Jungkook stared horrified. Vine? That's a war crime. She gave him a look, daring him to argue. It's genius. Don't knock it till you try it. He groaned, rubbing his temples. I'm not sure the Geneva Convention allows that combination. Your loss, she said, taking another bite and sighing happily. He shook his head, smiling despite himself. You're unbelievable. She glanced up at him, the corners of her lips twitching. You say that like it's a bad thing. Moments like this became common, small, ridiculous, warm. Jungkook found himself laughing more often than he did in months. The sound of her voice, the way she teased him, the soft curve of her growing belly, it was all felt like home. By the fifth month, Jungkook had memorized the layout of the hospital. He sat beside Wine during ultrasounds, watching the screen with wide eyes each time. The first time he heard the baby's heartbeat, he froze. The tiny, steady rhythm filled the room, and something in his chest broke open. That's ours? He whispered. Wine turned to look at him, her expression soft. Yes, that's our baby. He didn't say anything else, but his hand reached for hers, and for the first time in a long time, she didn't pull away. After that, he started keeping a small notebook. Vine teased him for it, but he didn't care. He wrote down every milestone, the first cake, the first craving, the first time he felt the baby move beneath his palm. She laughed so hard she cried because I bought the wrong pickles, but she ate them anyway. Week 25, I felt the baby's heartbeat. I think I stopped breathing for a full moment. Week 27, she fell asleep on the couch. I watched her for a while. I never seen anyone look so peaceful, but not every day was easy. Those were the nights when Vine fears resurfaced the doubts, the memories of his words from that night. Last night was a mystery. They echoed in her mind when she least expected it. One night as she lay awake, she whispered, Do you ever regret it? Jungkook turned toward her, confused. Regret what? This, us, the baby. He stared at her for a long moment before answering. Never, he said quietly. I regret hurting you. I regret being too scared to admit how much you meant to me. But this, you, the baby, no Wine, not for a second. Tears filled her eyes, but this time they weren't from sadness. She reached for his hand and he squeezed it, grounding her in silence. Pregnancy brought sleepless nights. Sometimes Vine would wake up craving something absurd. Ice cream at 2 a.m., spicy noodle at dawn, pancakes shaped like hearts. Jungkook never complained. One night she took him awake at 3 in the morning. Jungkook, I need watermelon. He blinked half asleep. Now? Yes, now. I can't stop thinking about it. He groaned but smiled. All right, watermelon it is. 30 minutes later, they sat in the kitchen floor sharing a bowl of cubed watermelon, laughing quietly as the city slept outside. You're going to spoil me, she teased. Too late, he replied softly. You already have. The words hung between them, fragile and real. Vine looked at him, heart fluttering in a way that scared her. But this time she didn't look away. By the seventh month, Vine became obsessed with organizing everything closets, drawers, even Jungkook's bags. You can't keep your keys in here, she scolded. This is our baby's drawer now. Vine, that's my only drawer. Then you will learn to share. He laughed and shook his head, loving her more than he dared to admit. He found himself staying longer after every visit, sometimes falling asleep on the couch beside her. They hadn't defined what they were, but the apartment was slowly becoming their space. His toothbrush appeared next to hers, his hoodie hung on her chair, his mug sat beside her in the kitchen. It wasn't official, but it was something. One evening, as they sat together watching TV, Wine gasped. Jungkook, he panicked immediately. What? What happened? She grabbed his hand and pressed it to her stomach. There, feel that? At first, Snook's breath hitched. Oh my god. Wine smiled, eyes shining. She's kicking. He looked up at her, stunned. She? Wine shrugged playfully. I just have a feeling. Jungkook laughed softly, his hand still resting on her stomach, feeling every small moment like it was a miracle. Hey little one, he whispered, it's your dad. Vine froze, the heart stuttering at the word dad. It slipped from him so naturally, so full of wonder, that she couldn't even tease him for it. The days blurred into each other after that soft, ordinary, and somehow extraordinary all at once. Vine and Jungkook settled into an unspoken rhythm. He had arrived at her apartment after work, loosened his tie, and slipped easily into her world. Sometimes they cooked together, sometimes they sat in silence, and other times they argued about things so trivial that both of them ended up laughing halfway through. But even with the laughter, there was tension, a quiet current between everything they did. It was Jungkook's sister, Layla, who insisted on organizing a small baby shower. Vine had protested at first. I don't need a big celebration, she said. It's not like I have an army of friends to invite. But Layla wouldn't take no for an answer. You're family now. You don't get to say no. When the day arrived, Vine found herself standing in the middle of Jungkook's living room, surrounded by pastel decorations and soft laughter. People wrapped gift wrap in ribbons and bows, little blankets, bottles, tiny socks so small she could cradle them in her palm. Jungkook watched her from across the room, a gentle smile tugging at his lips. She looked red and nervous but glowing, her hand occasionally drifting to her belly. When the girls finally left, Vine exhaled and looked at the pile of presents. That was overwhelming. Jungkook laughed, rubbing the back of his neck. You handled it like a pro, she smirked. You owe me for this. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, and what's the price? Food wraps for a week. He grinned. Deal. That night, when he did exactly that, sitting on the floor, carefully massaging her swollen feet while she half dozed on the couch, Vine thought she might actually cry, not because of pain or hormones, but because no one had ever cared for her so quietly, so genuinely. The eighth month came with new challenges. Hormones made Vine restless, and Jungkook's protectiveness sometimes tipped into frustration. You can't carry that, he said one afternoon as she tried to lift a box full of baby clothes. Jungkook, it's fine, it's not even heavy. Still, let me do it. You don't have to hover over me all the time. They stared at each other, both breathing hard, her eyes flashing, his jaw tight. Then she sighed and sat down, pressing a hand to her belly. I hate feeling useless. Jungkook's expression softened. He crouched in front of her. You are not useless, Vine. You are growing a human. You are doing something I never could. Her eyes glistened. Then stop treating me like I will break. He smiled faintly. Deal, but I'm still carrying the groceries. She rolled her eyes, but the corners of her mouth curved upward. A few nights later, rain drummed softly against the windows. Vine sat on the couch, wrapped in one of Jungkook's hoodies, scrolling through baby names on her phone. What about Lena? She suggested. Cute, but she sounds like she would talk back. Like her father then, she teased. He laughed, shaking his head. Touchy. They went through a dozen more names, some serious, some ridiculous, until Vine's laughter turned into tears. Jungkook immediately moved closer. Hey, what's wrong? She shook her head, crying softly. Nothing. I'm scared, Jungkook. What if I'm not good enough? What if I mess this up? He reached for her hand. You won't. You are going to be an amazing mother. You don't know that. I do, he said gently, because even when you were furious with me, even when you didn't trust me, you still cared. You still fought for what was right and what was good mothers too. Vine leaned into him then, her head against her chest, listening to his heartbeat. For a long time neither spoke. In that quiet something shifted again, a deeper trust, a silent acknowledgement that whatever happened, they were in this together. By the 9th month, Vine had her hospital bag packed and repacked 5 times. Jungkook had memorized its contents: diapers, wipes, snacks, charger, baby blanket. She arched an eyebrow. You forgot the fuzzy socks. He grinned. Never. Those are at the top. They both laughed, and for a fleeting moment, the future didn't seem so terrifying. It happened in the ordinary way. They were watching a movie, a comedy Vine had seen a dozen times. She laughed halfway through, then suddenly gasped. What? Jungkook said immediately aloud. Vine's hand flew to her belly. I think my water just broke. His eyes widened. Wait, what? Now? But the due date? Do I look like I care about the due date, Jungkook? She snapped, already breathing hard. He scrambled to his feet, completely panicked. Okay, hospital bag. Car keys, where are your shoes? By the door. He found them. Grab her hand, I'll help her up. Vine clutched his arm tightly, breathing through the contractions. Jungkook, I swear, if you drive like a maniac, no promises. They stumbled out to the light. The city lights blurring as rain began to fall again. As he helped her into the car, fumbling with the seatbelt, both of them were terrified and in that moment they knew this was it. Everything they had been through, the heartbreak, the fear, the rebuilding had led to this night. The rain came harder as Jungkook drove, wipers slashing across the windshield in a panic rhythm that matched his heartbeat. Vine sat in the passenger seat, gripping his arm and breathing through clenched teeth. Slow down, she managed between the breaths. I'm trying. Jungkook, if you pass that red light, I swear I will name the baby after your words habit. That somehow got him to ease up on the accelerator. He tried to stay calm, but his hand trembled on the steering wheel. He had been in plenty of emergencies before, broken deadlines, lost deals, even emotional storms, but nothing like this. This was Vine. This was their baby. He reached out with the one hand, his fingers finding hers. Hey, look at me. Vine turned, eyes wet and wild with pain and fear. You are doing great, he whispered. I'm right here, okay? I'm not going anywhere. She nodded, breath hitching, her grip tightening around his hand until by the time they arrived, everything blurred, nasals rushing, fluorescent lights flickering. The sound of Vine's sharp breathing echoing through sterile hallways. Jungkook parked harshly and half carried her inside, shouting for help before anyone ever asked. She is in labor. A nurse appeared with a calm smile that only made Jungkook feel more frantic. Okay, sir, we will take it from here. Just breathe. His knuckles turned white. I'm fine, he said automatically. Not you, her. The nurse replied dryly. Vine between contractions somehow found the strength to laugh. She's got a point. They led to a room. A machine's beeping steadily. Jungkook followed, refusing to let go of her hand even for a second. When a nurse tried to guide him out to sign forms, Wine's voice strong, commanding stop everyone. He stays. That single sentence silenced the room. Jungkook swallowed hard, bringing back emotion he didn't even know how to contain. I'm not leaving, he promised. Time blurred again. Minutes stretched into hours. The clock on the wall ticked louder than usual. Each second an eternity. Jungkook sat beside Wine, rubbing her back as she breathed through the pain. Every few minutes she had squeezed his hand with the strength of a heavy-lined boxer. You are doing so well, he murmured. You're lying, she hissed. I feel like I'm dying. He smiled weakly. Then you look beautiful doing it. A nurse across the room chuckled quietly and Wine glared at him through a contraction. Not the time for your charm, Jungkook. Not that, he said, squeezing her hand again. In the brief moments between contractions, they found strange peace, little pockets of silence filled with shears glances, whispered reassurance, and the quiet realization that this was their story, their miracle unfolding in real past time. Hours later, when exhaustion settled deep into her bones, Wine whispered, Do you remember that night? Jungkook's heart clenched. Which one? The night you said it was a mistake. He flinched, but it didn't took away. Every day since, I hated you for it, he said softly, staring at the ceiling. But maybe we both needed to fall apart before we could build something new. Jungkook reached out, brushing down hair from her face. I never deserved this second chance. Vine looked at him, eyes glassy but kind. Then earn it. I will, he said simply. I promise. She believed him. The doctor arrived just before dawn, calm and steady. All right, Vaughn, it's almost time. You're doing beautifully. Jungkook felt his throat tighten. Almost time. The words hit him like a wave. He turned to her, his hand trembling as he brushed hers. You ready? Vine gave a weak laugh. Do I have a choice? Not anymore. Then yeah, she whispered, let's meet our baby. The doctor gave Jungkook a look. You can stay if you want. Jungkook swallowed hard. There is nowhere else I would rather be. The room filled with quiet chaos, nurses moving efficiently, machines humming softly, rain still whispering against the windows. Wine's breathing quickened, her fingers dug into Jungkook's palm. You're almost here, the nurse said gently, just a little longer. Jungkook leaned close, his forehead resting against hers. You have got this, I swear you have got this. Her eyes fluttered open, blinding his for a split second. The world disappeared, no mistakes, no heartbeat, no fear. Just the two of them and the life they had created. Jungkook, she whispered, when this is over, hold her first. He froze. Why no? Please, she said softly. You will be a great father. I want her to know that first. He nodded, tears slipping freely now. Then we will both hold her. The doctor's voice broke through the haze. Okay, Wine, it's time. Jungkook gripped her hand tighter, his voice breaking as he whispered, I love you, you can do this. Vine gave a small smile, tired smile, the kind that could undo him completely, and took a deep, steadying breath. Outside the rain began to slow. Dawn crept over the horizon, washing the city in soft light. And inside the small hospital room where the pain and love intertwined, the world was about to change forever. The clock read 4:27 a.m. when Vine screamed the toll through the room. Jungkook's hand was wrapped in hers, his knuckle crashed, but he didn't flinch. He just held tighter. You are doing amazing, he said hoarsely, voice trembling. You say that one more time and I will throw something at you. Vine snapped between labored breaths. The nurse laughed softly. That's normal, they all say that. Vine's glare shot her way, but it melted as another contraction hit. She groaned, sweat glistening on her forehead. Jungkook was instantly there, wiping the brow. whispering useless things, praying silently for his strength. His heart felt like it was being squeezed. He had never seen anyone so strong or so fragile all at once. Each push felt like eternity compressed into seconds. The doctor's voice was calm and firm. Okay, Wyatt, one more deep breath. You are almost there. Chenguk leaned close, whispering, almost there. You have got this, baby. She half cried at the word baby, knowing it wasn't just encouragement, it was the truth that would soon fill their world. Her body tensed again, her hand clamped over his. Django kissed her knuckles. I'm right here, he said over and over like a prayer. Vine squeezed her eyes shut. Don't let go. Never, he promised. The rain had stopped outside, leaving only the quiet hum of machines and the rhythmic beeping of the monitor. The doctor spoke again. Okay, Vine, one more push, one more. You can do this. Vine's entire being tightened. Zenguk's throat burned as he watched, powerless, terrified, awestruck. Then a sound, a tiny sharp cry. Time stopped for a moment, no one breathed, and then the nurse smiled, lifting a small squirming bundle, and that sound, that beautiful, impossible cry filled the room. Vine collapsed back against the pillow, sobbing and laughing all at once. Is she? She's perfect, the doctor said softly. Chenguk froze where he stood, tears streaming freely now. The nurse handed him a pair of scissors. Dad? He blinked. What? Would you like to do the honors? His hand shook as he nodded. He stepped forward, breathed gently, and cut the cord fragile bridge between before and after. His hand shook as he nodded. He stepped forward, breath tumbling, and cut the cord, the fragile bridge between before and after. The baby cried louder, stronger, and Jungkook saw his heart cracked open completely. The nurse wrapped the baby and turned to him. Do you want to hold her? He hesitated, his hand trembling so much he thought he might drop her. I don't know if I should. Vine's voice, soft and exhausted, came from the bed. Jungkook, hold her. That was all it took. He reached out clumsy, terrified, and then she was there in his arms, tiny, warm, real. Her skin was pink and soft, her face clenched in protest at the cold air. Jungkook's breath hitched as he stared down at her. Hey, he whispered, voice breaking. It's me, your dad. The world felt strange on his tongue, foreign and miraculous all at once. He quieted at the sound of his voice, just like that, as if she already knew him. Chenguk laughed through the tears. You know me, huh? Of course you do. You have been hearing me talk to your mom for months. Vine watched him, her chest rising and falling slowly. Despite the exertion, her smile was radiant. She looks like you. Chenguk turned to her, eyes glistening. God, I hope not. She deserves better. Shut up, Vine whispered, her laughter weak but full of love. A nurse gently transferred the baby into Vine's arms, and Jungkook sat on the edge of the bed, unable to look away. Vine gazed down at the tiny face pressed against her chest, her expression somewhere between disbelief and pure awe. Hi, little one, she whispered. I'm your mom. The baby shifted slightly, eyes fluttered open, just long enough to glimpse the world for the first time. Chenguk brushed a strand of hair from Vine's forehead. You were incredible, he said quietly. You don't do too bad yourself, she said softly. I panicked completely. Yeah, I noticed. They both laughed, that fragile, sleepy kind of laughter that comes after surviving something enormous. As the sky outside turned pale gold, the nurses dimmed the lights and left them alone for the first time. The room was hushed now, filled only with the baby's soft breathing and the steady rhythm of Vine's heart monitor. Jungkook sat beside them, one hand resting over Vine's and the other gently touching the baby's tiny fingers. She's unreal, he murmured. We did that. Vine said softly, eyes closed. You and me. Yeah, they were silent for a while, just staring at her. Then Jungkook whispered, I'm sorry. Vine turned to her head, eyebrows lifting slightly. For what? For calling that night a mistake. He said, his voice raw, for not being brave enough to see what it really was, the best thing that ever happened to me. Her eyes softened. You were scared. Still am. Good. She said with a tired face. That means you cared, Jungkook laughed quietly. She is going to change everything. She already has. When the nurse returned with the clipboard, she asked gently, have you decided on a name? Vine looked at Jungkook. He blinked out off guard. We didn't talk about it, did we? Vine smiled faintly. I had a few in mind. Let's hear them. Lila, she said softly. It means night. Jungkook tilted his head. Because she came after the longest one? Because she ended it. Vine replied, he smiled, his eyes shining. Lila, he repeated. It's perfect. The nurse wrote it down, and the name felt like a promise hanging in the air, delicate, eternal. Later that morning, when Vine finally drifted off to sleep, Jungkook sat by the window with Leela on his arms. He couldn't stop staring at her, tiny moments, a yawn, a twitch. A sigh felt like watching magic breathe. He whispered, you know, I wasn't ready for you, not even close, but I think you are exactly what I need. Leela stirred softly, her tiny hand dripping over his finger with surprising strength. Jungkook laughed under his breath. Yeah, you have got her spirit, that's for sure. He looked back at Vine, peaceful now, her face pale but beautiful, and something inside him shifted completely. The fear that had haunted him for months faded into something else, something solid. He wasn't just a man who had made a mistake anymore. He was a man who would never ever let the mistake define their story again.